Canada is quietly building Ukraine's eyes. Now, most people covering this war have the bottleneck wrong. They look at Ukraine's weapon count, the drones, the missiles, the artillery rounds. They assume the scarce resource is the thing that explodes. In modern combat, finding the target is harder than destroying it. Ukraine has more ways to kill a Russian vehicle than it has ways to reliably see that vehicle, classify it, and hand its exact coordinates to a shooter before it moves. Sensors are the bottleneck, not warheads. And once you understand that, two recent Canadian announcements stop looking like minor diplomatic news and start looking like a window into how this entire war actually works. Because the country the world associates with apologizing and maple syrup just quietly cornered a piece of the one input Ukraine needs most. Canada isn't sending Ukraine the spear, Canada is sending Ukraine the eyes on the end of the spear. And most people, including most Canadians, have absolutely no idea. Hey friends, Wes here, honorary Canadian, multi-branch veteran, and today I want to make an argument that runs against basically every defense headline you've read about this war. Here's the contrast. When people imagine Canada's role in Ukraine, they picture a diplomatic statement and maybe some body armor. What actually exists is a Canadian sensor turret tracking Russian drones over Ukrainian cities and a Canadian drone factory coming online in Hamilton, Ontario, producing reconnaissance aircraft explicitly described by Ukraine's own defense ministry as a critical part of its mid-strike targeting program. Wait, Hamilton?
And I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot.
Oh, Hamilton, Ontario. I got it. The country nobody pictures as an arms exporter is quietly running an eyeball factory for a European war. That's kind of insane, Canada. Not what Canada is sending, but what Canada is seeing. So let me start with what broke this spring because it's the cleaner story. At CANSEC, Canada's major defense exhibition in Ottawa, the Canadian and Ukrainian defense ministries signed an arrangement to build Ukrainian-designed drones on Canadian soil. The result is a 50-50 joint venture called AirLogic's Sentinel, pairing a Ukrainian defense tech firm with a manufacturer out of Hamilton, Ontario. Canadian factory, Ukrainian designs, finished drones shipped to the front. And here's a detail that matters more than any of the politics. According to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, these aren't strike drones, they're reconnaissance drones. Their job is to hover over the battlefield, find targets, and hand them off. The official called it a critical part of Ukraine's mid-strike program. In plain English, not French, Canada. The Canadian drones are the spotters. They find what the strike drones then go on to destroy. This has been one of many real industrial contributions from Canada in this war. There's another Canadian fingerprint here too. There's a counter-drone system the US sent Ukraine called Vampire. Great name. It stands for Vehicle Agnostic Modular Palletized ISR Rocket Equipment, which is an acronym clearly built by a committee that wanted the word vampire first and worked backward from there. You bolt the kit into a bed of basically any pickup truck or Humvee in about 2 hours, and it shoots down drones. With APKWS rocket. It's been in Ukraine since 2023 and has reportedly knocked hundreds of threats out of the sky. Vampire is built around two pieces. There's the rocket that does the work, the APKWS, which is a cheap laser-guided 70mm rocket with a guidance kit strapped to it, running maybe $20,000 to $30,000 per shot, which in air defense terms is pocket change. But the rocket is useless on its own. It only works because of the other piece, the eye. And in a lot of cases, that eye is a Westcam MX-10 sensor turret. And Westcam is, of course, Canadian, made in Burlington, Ontario, which is about a 15-minute drive from the Hamilton plant now building those reconnaissance drones. I'm not super clear on my Canadian geography, but there is a YouTube channel I watch where this guy kayaks around Lake Nipigon, and it's just fascinating. I love every second of it. What is that guy's name? Somebody drop that name down in the comments so I can make sure I subscribe to his channel. Anyways, within one stretch of southern Ontario highway, you've got two separate pieces of Ukraine's targeting chain coming off the line simultaneously. And that turret, it's the heart of everything. The Westcam MX-10 is a stabilized electro-optical and infrared ball, day camera, and thermal that an operator uses to acquire a target, track it as it moves, and then paint it with a laser. The rocket flies down that laser beam to the designated spot. So the sequence is the sensor sees the drone, the sensor tracks the drone, the sensor designates the drone, and only then does the cheap rocket leave the rail and end it. Take the Westcam off the truck and you don't have a counter-drone system. You have a truck with some rockets and no idea where to point them. So the shooter gets the highlight reel. The Canadian sensor is why there was anything to film. I watched this dynamic play out from the air for years on the AWACS. The entire mission was building the picture and handing it to someone who could act on it. Detection, classification, tracking, targeting handoff. We were the eye. The shooters were somewhere else. And the lesson you internalize fast is that the side that owns the picture owns the fight. A shooter with no picture is expensive scrap waiting to happen. A sensor with no shooter is a spectator. The system only works when both sides of that relay are functioning. Vampire is that same relay race shrunk down to the back of a Humvee. The APKWS gets the kill on camera. The Canadian turret is why the camera had something to track. Sensors win engagements. Shooters collect the credit. That relay race is the doctrine shipped underneath this entire war, and it deserves a clean explanation. A modern kill chain runs in sequence, right? Find, fix, track, target, engage, assess. Find it, pin its location, follow it as it moves, decide to engage, hit it, and then verify. Notice that exactly one of those 6 steps is the explosion, and the other 5 are about information, about seeing. The entire reason Ukraine has been able to offset Russia's advantages in manpower and mass is that Ukraine has, for long stretches, simply seen the battlefield better. Cheap reconnaissance drones overhead, feeding coordinates to strike drones and artillery from Delta or Kropiva. The Globe and Mail newspaper reported that Ukraine clawed back territory for the first half of this year, partly through drone-driven targeting superiority. One Ukrainian commander credited drone strikes with cutting traffic on a key Crimea supply route by over 70%. That's vision converted into pressure. It's the sensor winning the fight before the warhead ever leaves the rail. Now, we don't have production numbers or delivery timeline for the AirLogix Sentinel drone deal. The officials wouldn't provide one, which is either operational security or a sign that the production ramp is still being worked out. We don't know which answer it is. But the deeper challenge is one worth watching closely. Ukraine's entire battlefield edge in drone technology is iteration speed, changing the design the week after Russia figures out the previous version. That has to be maddening for Putin's commanders. Building drones in Ontario keeps them safe from Russian missiles, but it puts them 8,000 kilometers from that feedback loop. Whether the joint venture can sustain Ukrainian-grade adaptation tempo from a Canadian factory floor is the real open question, because the moment the drones stop iterating faster than Russian jamming evolves, the recon advantage starts to erode. On the Westcam side, the structural claim is solid. The system can't function without that sensor. What we don't have is the public accounting of how many engagements depended on it, which is exactly the kind of number neither Ukraine nor Canada is going to release. But the architecture is confirmed. The classified operational record stays classified. What we do know is that Russia noticed. The moment the drone deal was announced, the Russian Foreign Ministry publicly called Canada a warmonger and threatened the Hamilton Company by name. The CEO's response was essentially a shrug. When the Kremlin bothers to name a mid-sized drone manufacturer in southern Ontario, you can safely conclude the work matters considerably more than the modest headline suggests. And here's the funny thing that makes the whole Canadian picture coherent. Stack the contributions up and look at the shape. Roughly $25 billion in total support since the invasion. Operation Unifier, the training mission that's put over 47,000 Ukrainian soldiers through their paces, just renewed out to 2029. F-16 pilot training, hundreds of Senator armored vehicles built by Rochelle just outside of Toronto, hauling troops and evacuating wounded under fire on roads drones are actively hunting. Sensor turrets, a new reconnaissance drone factory, and a G7 announcement this month of another $4.3 billion, with the infrastructure loan portion structured to be repaid from interest on frozen Russian sovereign assets. Russia's own immobilized money, helping rebuild the power plants Russia keeps bombing. Chef's kiss, mwah, don't change anything. Notice what almost none of it is. It's not the thing that trends on social media. It's training, it's mobility, it's optics, it's endurance. It's the unglamorous connective tissue. It's the parts of war that make the flashy weapons function, which, if you've been paying attention, is the most Canadian possible way to fight a war. Quietly do the essential work and let somebody else get the highlight reel. The sensors are the bottleneck. Canada cornered the sensors. The reconnaissance drone program is real, the timeline is uncertain, and the iteration speed problem is genuine. Canada building eyes for Ukraine really matters. Whether those eyes can stay sharp from 8,000 kilometers away is the question the next 12 months will answer. And Russia's electronic warfare keeps improving specifically because the recon layer is what it most wants to blind. The eyes are exactly what the enemy targets first, which means the AirLogic's Sentinel drones are entering a contested environment that will test them hard the moment they arrive. So the next time you watch footage of a Russian vehicle getting picked apart from altitude, something found it first. Something tracked it. Something handed that location to the shooter before the target moved. There's a real chance the eye that found it was Canadian, built in a factory 15 minutes down the highway from where that sensor turret was assembled, by a country the world keeps mistaking for polite. Quiet, unglamorous, running a targeted chain for a European war from the middle of southern Ontario, and when Russia found out, they threatened the factory by name. That's not how you threaten a country that doesn't matter. That's how you confirm one that does. That is it for today, my friends. If this was useful, hit subscribe. It's the best free signal you can send to the algorithm, and it tells YouTube that human creators still have an audience worth finding. Hey, nothing against robots. If robots are your thing, get your groove on, man. I ain't gonna judge. I got some crazy shit in my closet. If you see that funky QR code on the screen, well, that just goes to my Substack, which is also wesodonald.com. That's where the long-form analysis lives. And as always, oh Canada, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.